Ready? What's up? It's broke. It's broke. It's broke. It's broke. It's broke. It's broke.
Former Raiders quarterback Derek Carr suffered a broken fibula, which was deemed one of the worst injuries of the 2016 regular season. Many have speculated that this injury ended up changing the trajectory of Derek Carr's career. That's why today we're going to be discussing the anatomy, the biomechanics, surgery, and most importantly, whether it's influenced his quarterback play over the years. Let's jump straight into the anatomy and biomechanics. We're going to see Carr move up in the pocket and try to avoid a sack. You'll see behind him number 58, the linebacker Trent Cole, wraps his arms around Carr and spins him around, causing him to do a 180 before he's brought down. This angle gives us a better view of Carr's right leg. Watch his right foot as Cole lands on it and spins Carr to the ground. As DC is being twisted around, the right foot is in a pronated or in an externally rotated position, and the inside of his ankle or the medial malleolus is falling inwards. This is occurring before all 270 pounds of Trent Cole falls on the lateral side of Carr's ankle. If we orient ourselves to Carr's tibia or shin bone is facing down towards the ground as his foot is being pointed laterally to the outside. As the clip rolls, though we don't see a good view of it, you can imagine his foot is facing this direction while his body is going in the opposite direction, putting a significant stretch on the middle portion or the medial malleolus of his ankle. This sequence of events and positioning of the foot is the classic and most common mechanism behind a high ankle sprain. If the foot continues to twist in the opposite direction, it can lead to what we call a pronation external rotation ankle injury that can cause a fibular fracture, which is what happened in Carr's case, and it can even lead to an ankle dislocation, which I will discuss in further detail shortly. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Nav. If you guys are learning something new, don't forget to give this a huge thumbs up, and please smash that subscribe button. It really helps our family grow. Thank you. If we take a look at this again using this model, this is also a right foot. This is the medial malleolus or the inside of the ankle, and this is the lateral side or the outside of the ankle, also known as the lateral malleolus. Here is the fibula, the part that Derek Carr fractured. This bears about 15% of the human body's weight on this leg. This is the large tibia bone here, or the shin bone, and here, as you can see, you have this tibia and this fibula come together around the talus bone. So what happens to Derek Carr is he externally rotates the ankle initially like so. And once it is externally rotated, the player falls on the foot and it puts pressure on this outside bone, the fibula, which subsequently leads to the fracture. If you see this as the talus bone and you see this as the tibia and fibula, you'll see it go on top of the talus like this, and that allows the foot to move forward and backwards, and you have good range of motion doing that. Now, the foot is limited in how much it can go left to right. If it's externally rotated or internally rotated too much, what you run the risk of doing is kind of opening up that bone and leading to something like a fracture. And this is what happens to Derek Carr, where you get that external rotation and the fibula kind of popping out of place. Now, worst case scenario, when this happens, you can also have something called a ankle dislocation. This was something that we saw with Dak Prescott, where the bone actually comes out of the socket. If you have a fracture with a dislocation, sometimes the bone can pop out of the skin. If this is to occur, it increases the risk of infection and a whole bunch of complications. So technically, this injury could have been worse for Carr, and thankfully he did not have any dislocation or any open fracture that we were made aware of. When this happens, the doctors on the scene, the first thing they're going to do is to see if the foot is neurovascularly intact. That means, are the blood vessels intact, or is there any internal bleeding? And are the nerves intact? So is he able to move the foot? Can he have sensation in that foot? Now, if either one of those things is missing, it's a medical emergency, and you have to get into surgery right away, because if you don't, you risk permanent damage, and it could even lead to amputation of that foot or limb.
Derek had a break of this fibula, and require surgery. I'm going to try and get it done tomorrow, and so he'll be out indefinitely.
Carr's fibular fracture required surgery to stabilize and promote proper healing. There's a few different classification systems that are used to describe the location of these fibular fractures, and I'm happy to make a separate video on that if anyone is interested. The procedure typically involves the use of metal plates, screws, or rods to align and fixate the broken bone. Plating the fibula is typically done in less than an hour. This plate acts as an internal splint. Once the biological healing occurs, you don't need the plate anymore, and you can either take it out or you can leave it in, which is what we do with older people. With Carr, there's pros and cons to both, but they probably left it in because if you take it out, that requires another mending period. My bet is that it'll stay in the rest of his life. After the surgery, Carr began his rehabilitation process, which focuses on regaining strength, range of motion, and stability in that leg.
We knew once we hit him a few times, he really gets shook, and you saw on CC's sack, he was pretty much curling into a ball before we even got back there. But we know once you get pressure on him, he kind of shuts down, and he's not as effective with the crowded pocket.
Many Raiders fans have mentioned that they noticed a change in Derek Carr's play after he came back from the injury, and hopefully after watching the intro of Carr's reaction and coupling it with our review, we can see just how dangerous and traumatizing something like this can be. One of the things I haven't really seen anyone discuss is whether Carr suffered from PTSD after this injury, and there's actually some pretty compelling evidence that this may have been possible. Some studies show that 1 in 8 elite athletes may develop PTSD after experiencing or witnessing severe injury. Athletes who go on to develop PTSD can demonstrate sports-related functional changes. It's important to note that these symptoms or changes are usually subconscious, meaning they happen involuntarily, and it's believed the brain develops adaptive behaviors to avoid similar situations in the future. Common symptoms can be intrusion reactions, during which the athlete feels or acts as if the traumatic event were recurring. Hyper-vigilance, a condition in which the nervous system is inaccurately filtering sensory information, and the athlete may have an enhanced state of sensory sensitivity. And exaggerated startle response, which is a more pronounced reaction to external stimuli. Now, I've watched all of the games Derek Carr played as a Raider for the last 9 years, and some may disagree with this take, but I did notice at times after this injury a regression in his pocket awareness, a higher tendency to make poor decisions under pressure. And though he flashed great mobility at times and he gave Raider Nation some incredibly clutch performances, he also at times showed an inability to keep his eyes down the field when he was pressured, and like Bosa said, would curl up into a ball to protect himself. To be fair, there's a lot of confounding variables in my take. His scouting report prior to being drafted did mention that he struggles when faced with pressure, even before he came into the NFL. And this in no part means that Carr 100% had PTSD, but the key thing that I want to bring attention to is that we have to recognize the mental health of our athletes, especially when they go through something as serious as this injury. That's as much a part of the rehab process as rehabbing the bones, the muscles, and the tissues of the affected area. And just like the bones and tissues take time to heal, the mental side piece also does. This was the first time since 1933, when the NFL playoffs started, that a quarterback had led his team to 12 or more wins and did not start a postseason game. My heart goes out to Derek Carr. I was actually in the stadium the day that he sustained this fracture, and it literally sucked the soul out of the entire stadium seeing him go down. This was the season that he finished third in MVP voting, and many Raiders fans would say that this may have been a year he could have led us to the Super Bowl. You never want to see this type of injury happen to any athlete, and it's always devastating when it does occur. I really do wish him all the best with the New Orleans Saints, and I hope to see him become the best version of himself, maybe in a way that we've never even gotten to see him before. That's it for the video today, guys. If you guys enjoyed this, please give it a huge thumbs up. Be sure to click subscribe. If you're a Raiders fan, I'll be breaking down more Raiders injuries. So Raider Nation, join the journey, baby. Let's do this.